Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and welcome to a brand new series that I'm going to be calling The Division Weekly. So you can probably tell from the title what exactly this series is. It's going to be a once-a-week coverage of the Division as we move closer to the launch of the Division and hopefully after the launch of the Division. Now, it's being set up in sort of a micro sort of video podcast type format because the simple fact is there isn't that much footage out there on the Division, and I don't have the game, so I can't actually go ahead and record a bunch of B-roll like I would with Rainbow Six Siege and then talk over it. So instead, we'll be highlighting small pieces of gameplay footage, fan art, and perhaps other important images throughout that. So I went ahead and made this nice, wonderful sort of dashboard for us. Give you guys an idea of what we're actually going to be talking about in each week's discussion, as well as give you a heads up as to who the fan art focus is for the week. Try to do it in the theme of the Division, something nice, quick and clean. I really like the way it looks, and I think it's going to be the perfect sort of delivery tool for each episode of the Division Weekly. Now, obviously, the Division is a game that I am very excited about, hence the reason for the idea of this. I wanted an excuse to talk about the Division at least once a week, and every single week we'll also be throwing in any pieces of news, any sort of announcements that we get directly from Ubisoft and Massive about the game. On top of that, you guys may be seeing right now under discussion data, we have a final bulletin point for viewer-submitted topics. Moving forward, I'm going to be looking for topics of discussion submitted by you guys, things you want to hear me talk about, things perhaps you'd like to hear me speculate on. So feel free to start throwing those down in the comments section below as we dive into the very first episode of the Division Weekly. Now, I want to go ahead and start off this episode with our fan art focus. This one comes from Robin Tran over on DeviantArt. Robin Tran has done a bunch of Tokyo-themed Division artwork. So while this is just insane Division artwork, some of the smaller details that you might notice is that it's been reimagined as if it was in Tokyo. You're going to see that in the artwork that you see on buildings, and I've highlighted a piece that I particularly enjoyed here with the cleaners causing a bit of havoc in perhaps what is downtown Tokyo. Amazing artwork. This dude is killing it. Awesome that the Division already has such a following that before the game is even out, we're already seeing fan art. There's definitely a dedicated fan basis and community ready to get their hands on this game, and people like Robin Tran prove that. If you guys want to check out more of his artwork, be sure to hit the link down in the description below. Go give him a heyo and a hello, and just check out some of the awesome Division artwork that he is doing. If you'd like to have any of your own personal Division artwork featured in a upcoming episode of the Division Weekly, feel free to go ahead and send me a message here right on YouTube, and we will see about making that happen. So let's go ahead and kick it into the discussion for the week. Now, the most recent news that we got was the recent announcement that there will not be player trading at launch. Now, admittedly, a lot of outlets covered this in a very poor and, they really didn't even take the time to figure out what was actually said by the community manager. What he actually said was the reason that they're not including player trading at launch is they don't feel it would be beneficial to the overall enjoyment of the Division's experience, at least not at launch. Maybe it's something they would consider down the road, but right now they don't see the purpose of it. I completely agree. I think there are games where player trading works. I think there are games where we want player trading, particularly because there's too much of a grind or things are too stagnant. Destiny feels that way. I mean, I think the biggest reason people wanted trading in Destiny was because of just how grindy it would become. You'd end up, some people would just get so lucky. They've got 6 Yaller horns, the other dude's got none, and you just want to give it to your friend. A lot of that, I think, was just not really great game design, or at least a flaw in the weapon drop system. It seems like the team behind the Division, guys at Ubisoft Massive, and the other developers that are working on it, Red Storm, so on and so forth, they're looking to avoid that altogether. And I'm hoping that that is not an issue either, especially in a game that's so heavily PvE focused. Like, yes, we have PvP, but the Dark Zone's kind of its own thing. Like, I'm just hoping that there will always be awesome gear to be found, and it won't really end up being this thing where one player always feels like they don't have a great piece of gear. And at the same time, if they can avoid making any one weapon the sort of ultimate weapon find, then they'll have really done a great job in balancing their loot. And it just seems the way the game's set up, we're not going to have a lot of those issues that like Destiny had with weapons equipment. So at least I'm hoping that we won't have a lot of those issues. So not a big letdown for me. Nothing I'm really genuinely concerned about. I think we're going to have more than enough loot to look for and hunt down in Manhattan. And that brings me to the next piece of our discussion, and that is that the developers have confirmed that at some point in the Division's life cycle, we will be able to experience not just Manhattan, but also Brooklyn, as they've shown in previous gameplay trailers. Sadly, that will not be happening at launch. Brooklyn is going to be post-launch content. Now, I'm actually okay with this. For whatever reason they are deciding to do it, to me it makes sense. If the play size, the play area of Manhattan is big enough to hold back a piece of content is smart by the developer. That's going to give us time to adjust to the game and to really get to know Manhattan before concerning ourselves with another area of the map, probably a equally large area. Not only that, but it gives them time to continue to develop Brooklyn. Maybe they're going to make Brooklyn larger, maybe more polish can be done there. But whatever the reasons are, I feel like at the end of the day, it's just going to be a win for us. I really do think Manhattan's going to be pretty big, and I'm looking forward to spending, the first year of the Division, the first 6 months, really enjoying that. But I do hope they are smart and they listen to the community and they see how quickly we're extinguishing and running through the content that's available in Manhattan, and then they go ahead and they launch Brooklyn or whatever other areas of the map they might have planned, according to how quickly, the core audience of the game is running through that content. Because there's nothing worse than losing a bunch of players because the game goes stagnant for 3 or 4 months. So hopefully they don't do that. A little bit later on in this episode too, we're going to speculate a little bit on what other areas in the map, what areas of New York City we might see actually open up for us. I briefly wanted to address my thoughts and opinions on the graphical downgrade, as so many people are calling it. I've been somebody who's gone on record numerous times saying that I think the build of the Division that we're seeing, which does appear to be on the Xbox One, most of the footage that we've seen, leaked or otherwise, is even said captured on Xbox One during alpha. I still find it to be an absolutely gorgeous game. It's obviously not running at the highest specs, but that's because it's on a console. I have no doubt that this game will look amazing on a PC that has the horsepower to run it on those high settings. Even Watch Dogs, after the sort of limiters and files were replaced by the community, looked absolutely stunning on the PC. Now, Ubisoft has gone out of their way to make sure that there isn't another fiasco like Watch Dogs, and they're showing us exactly what the game looks like, and I hope there is no holding back of the PC version, and we don't see the same thing happen that happened with Watch Dogs, where they actually restricted players initially from being able to realize the full visual potential of the game on PC. I don't want to see that. The Xbox One version, that's what it's going to look like. That's what the PlayStation 4 version is going to look like. That's fine. Let the people on PC jack those settings up and let them make this game look like what we saw back at E3, the year before and the year before that. If that's what needs to be done, good. And for those of you who are out there who are making, the rather smart connection that when we saw the game back at E3 a couple of years ago, it wasn't even announced for PC. I understand that. There's no doubt that it's possible that they had the game running and looking that beautiful on the Xbox One, but then the map starts to open up. More players start to enter the game, more items, more, characters. Things start to change the way the game is going to perform. And if they want to hit that 60 FPS frame rate, which I think is very important, they're going to have to do some graphical downgrade. I'll take the 60 FPS over the shiny shinies any day. I still think the Snowdrop engine looks fantastic on the Xbox One from what we've seen, and I think the game is going to do just fine. I think it nails the atmosphere and the setting. I love what they've done with the snow and the weather effects. Very much looking forward to that. And if I get to play the game on a PC and ramp it up to the highest possible settings, that is great too. Now let's talk about squad size, because this is something that we seem to pretty much have a solid confirmation on now. Much like Destiny, when you are in PvE areas of the map, you will be limited to a 3-man squad. A little bit upsetting. I feel like 4 was just the number for the long time. It does seem weird to have 3. Fortunately, I have 3 people who are looking to play the game. And it's not like you can't have another group of 3 friends off doing their own thing, and then perhaps meet up in something like the Dark Zone, where you can actually have 4 players. Not to mention, I haven't been able to find any sort of hardcore, just concrete, like this is this, nothing's going to change yet. Who knows what could happen after beta testing, who knows what could happen in the future, but right now that's the way it's looking. Some people, it's more of an issue than others. I don't really have a problem with it, because it's like, if we talk about, okay, well, if it's not 3 players, then it's 4 players. Well, what about the people who have 5 people in the group? What about people who have 6 people in the group? There's always going to be some sort of point where you see the number and it's not enough because you want to play with more people. But they have to balance the game, and the game has to make sense. If 3 players was the balancing point that they came to for the PvE content, then so be it. I'm hoping they made the right decision. I'm hoping the game is challenging, and I'm hoping that I don't ever feel like we could have used a 4th man by our side. So that's sort of the core of all of the discussion here. We're going to go ahead and roam into the weekly speculation. And what I want to talk about this week was what we could potentially see for other areas of New York City as we move forward, looking, sort of really well into the future for the life cycle of the Division. Now, obviously, Brooklyn has been confirmed. That's awesome. One of the things that was teased on some of the leaked map images that we got from the alpha, or at least that we could see on the map, we could actually see Central Park on the map. Now, of course, that can just be there because they want to kind of give you an idea of where you are inside of New York City, where you are in Manhattan relative to Brooklyn and Central Park. But I feel like that's huge potential for them to really change the way the game is played. Central Park is a massive foresty park area of New York City. It's pretty freaking huge. And to be able to transit from a city urban setting to an actual more, woods type setting covered in snow and ice would be utterly fantastic. And also, I can't help but have my wishbone just tingle a little bit on the idea of the game eventually moving out of winter and into seasonal cycles well down the line. But I have no idea how long Ubisoft and the other developers working on Division plan to keep this alive, if this is something they plan to keep going for multiple years, or if this is the game. Maybe we'll see a sequel in 3-4 years. I'd rather not have them nickel and dime it to death, but there's no doubt that I would love to see the Division continue well into the future if it manages to be a great success. Now, they have confirmed that as of right now, the Division takes place in winter. That's it. We won't see a change of seasons. We will see changes in weather effects, but this is it. It's cold. It's winter time. That is just when the game takes place. So don't expect to see a full, 4-season cycle happening in New York City anytime soon inside of the Division post-launch. Now, this is the point where you guys could have submitted a topic and I could have went ahead and talked about it. So feel free to do that down in the comment section below, and I will be sure to include it in next week's discussion. As I said, we're going to be doing these until the Division goes live, at which point I'll be covering a bunch of the Division. We're actually going to be covering the beta in the coming weeks. Hopefully that's something we'll be able to talk about. I'll also be having other beta footage on top of that, sort of doing in-depth breakdowns. And starting next week, I'm also looking to look a little bit deeper into the game's mechanics, and we'll be sure to break down a new component, a new gameplay mechanic every single week right here on the Division Weekly. Once again, go ahead, hit that link down in the description below. Check out that wonderful fan art focus from Robin Tran over on DeviantArt, and I will see you guys in the next one.